How are you all doing, guys? My name is Glody, and I'm joined here with Josiah. And now today's going to be very, very simple. We're actually just going to be having a little bit of a discussion about our acting careers, where we started from, where we are now, some of the issues that we faced, obviously, whilst being in our acting careers. Now, just to reiterate, the reason why we do things like this, number one, is because we want to understand our community, we want to understand our space. So without further ado, I'll allow Josiah, who doesn't need an introduction, I'll allow you to introduce yourself. I'll give it over to you, sir.
Perfect. Hi, my name is Josiah Choto. I'm an actor, singer, dancer, entrepreneur. Been in the industry for quite a while. It's been quite a journey, but as time goes on, you learn.
That's true, actually. I think one of the things that we were discussing very briefly, just before we actually came on, was about the importance of or comparing the two sorts of trainings for an actor. So one thing that was quite interesting, I actually started acting at the age of about 15. I didn't actually start professionally training until about the age of 24.
24? Okay, wow.
Yeah. So I've been training for a year, professionally. And I just wanted to because I know we kind of spoke about it briefly before the actual stream. I wanted you to speak about your experiences with both.
Okay.
The pros of, home training and the cons of, let's say, training professionally. I'll get into it as well after you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So I started off with home training for quite a while. From the age of 2 years old, I was able to go back to the homeland in Africa to just get away from the whole UK environment.
Yeah.
And during my time there, the moment I went there, actually, I was in South Africa at first. So when I was there, it was in 2009. So that was the exact same day or the same period that Michael Jackson died. So my auntie decided that, okay, let's buy some Michael Jackson CDs so that they can gain value later on. And if we can sell them, we gain profit out of it.
That's a very interesting.
Yes, very interesting. Yeah. So we travel around like Africa for a little bit. We go to like Tanzania, Botswana, just around the South African area. And then we eventually end up in Zimbabwe where we reside. And when we're there, we go into the house and this is late at night. Everyone's now asleep. Everyone's come out the car. Everyone's unpacked. And then I realized during my time there, why did my auntie buy that CD? At that time, I didn't know the impact of Michael Jackson or who he was as a person or the environment that he built around music and the way his creative flow moved and transitioned into other regions of the world. So I didn't know that at that time. So when I went into the house, there was a CD player in my room. And then obviously cheeky little Josiah goes into my auntie's bag, sneaks out of the room, takes the CD, puts into the CD player. And it was his tour at Budapest. Yeah. And from then on, the home training started because that's when the development, the whole road.
You practicing
exactly
everything that you were watching, obviously.
Exactly. And I think if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have the same tenacity, the same drive to do anything else because that was the blueprint, the formula that I used for now. Like even now, when it comes to like levels of research, buying more CDs to make sure that I know the way he moves, the way he sings, the way he takes possession of the stage. Yeah. That presence has now that drive actually has now been inflicted on me for quite a while. So 24 hours from 2-year-old Josiah to when I was 8, 9, 10, 11, just that continuous drive has always been my key point, my focus really when it comes to home training. So if it wasn't for that experience, I wouldn't have the same drive that I do now. So there's that aspect of it. It sharpens your skills. It gives you understanding of how the industry is, how you need to be per se. But when it comes to the liabilities of it, there's only so far you can go.
It's interesting though that you say that because I think that what we've seen or what you've articulated quite well is that, of course, the home training is, your introduction, obviously, into performance. Let's just say it like that, because it's not just acting you do, there's dance and there's singing that you do also. But I think one thing that's obviously very evident, or one thing that I know, for instance, I've experienced myself, is the fact that you have to evolve from home training into professional training at some point.
Yeah.
Because I even realized for myself, as I said, I didn't start actually professionally training until about a year ago, which is considering I started at 15, and I didn't get into any professional training until, like last year, I was able to quickly see the two differences. So for instance, me constantly training, or being in a class, or, being at a place like Identity Acting School, because that's where I train, I've noticed that there's the constant, competition that I realize is very important, because with home training, or with you, let's say training by yourself, number one, there isn't really, unless, you are an extraordinary, person.
Yeah,
Do you get what I'm
yeah,
saying?
Yeah.
There isn't anybody for you to be accountable to. Do you get what I'm saying? There isn't anybody for you to be able to, measure yourself against. I always feel like that's important. Especially being in a class like I'm in, where I'm training with a lot of very or high quality actors, I'm constantly having to test myself.
It's true.
So I know that, there isn't really any room for me to, either rest. There isn't any room for me, to take things easy. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
because
I get that,
at every class, I know that the person next to me is working 20 times as hard. So I would say that I feel like if you want to see yourself evolve, do you get what I'm saying? Especially as a creative, and this is just us speaking from, an acting perspective. There is that importance of actually going into professional training.
It's true.
Number one, because it also comes with certain informations.
There's
do you get
that
what I'm
too,
saying? That will then help your own research at home.
It's true.
Do you get what I'm saying? So I've definitely seen, the positives, let's say, to do professional training. Straight after a year of me doing professional training, I've been signed to one of, the biggest acting agencies in the UK. Do you get what I'm saying? And for me, that's just a testament of, number one, what professional training does. It's been a year of me constantly, measuring myself with other actors.
It's true.
Do you get what I'm saying? But
and also, it's just like backing off of what you said, age does not really matter when it comes to training. You can always learn.
Yeah.
That's one thing I've realized. Like, you could be as young as 1 year old and be training, or you could be as old as 50 and still be training. There's still opportunities out there waiting for you. So how was that like? Because I want to see it from like your perspective, since I wasn't really able to be like in professional training. I was in and out of it in so many high different training schools. How was that like?
So I'd say, if there's one thing I've noticed, especially with professional training, is that you actually start to see a lot more of your weaknesses, which I think is quite important. Like I was saying, when you're training by yourself, you may not necessarily see, everything. But it's like when you have, an external eye that's monitoring your progress, they can very quickly and very easily, start to pick out the areas that you need to work on.
It's true.
So with myself, I know it's an issue with many actors, being able to allow yourself to be vulnerable. It's something that's, I don't know if you've heard the saying, but one of my teachers has always told me, you need to be ready to look like an idiot.
It's true.
And be comfortable.
Do you get what I mean?
It's
true, because you need that kind of moment. I call it like the moment of you realizing that there's so much potential there, and you haven't really learned anything in that certain spectrum or that certain field. So the fact that training actually enables you to go in there and actually learn, like from step one to now going back into it and go to another sector and keep on building that sector, it's just a whole wide range, just a whole plethora of different things.
It's interesting though, because especially on that topic of allowing yourself to be more vulnerable, for instance, naturally, I've never liked to show my weaknesses per se, especially when it comes to we understand how sensitive acting can be.
It's true.
And there may be certain roles, or there may be certain scenes that you may have to do that will expose you, because that's what acting does. It really does leave you exposed, for instance. But I guess if there's something that I've noticed with a lot of the best actors, they've kind of embodied that whole, okay, I don't mind looking like an idiot, or in other ways, they don't really care about how other people are going to view them.
It's true.
Do you get what I'm saying? And being able to do that, it allows you to fully immerse yourself in what the character is asking for you at that time. Do you get what I'm saying? Because one thing, especially with actors, I feel like we're able to see when somebody's acting and when someone's being real.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like that all comes from that air of, allowing yourself to be vulnerable. So I feel like somebody who does that very well is someone like Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? In his ability to, go into a character and to fully immerse himself into what that character's feeling at that time and still be able to carry it out. I feel like it's a skill that a lot of people can very easily neglect. I could say that very easily since I've been training. It's something that I know, or, that was made clear to me. Okay, cool. This is an area that you need to work on. And because of that, I've been able to constantly, every single time I'm going to class or I'm practicing at home, it's something that I'm constantly attacking. Meaning that in a year's time, I can see that, okay, cool, I was here at this point in terms of, my vulnerability, and now I'm here. Do you get what I'm saying?
Big.
It's important.
It's very important. And I feel like with acting, there's so many different ways to say you're an actor as well. Different places that you can say you're an actor. Musical theatre, TV and entertainment, filming, short films. No matter what it could be, acting has a wide range of different possibilities and different places you could be. Because for me, when I started off thinking that, okay, let's do movies. I want to do movies. I want to do this and I want to do that. But I wasn't prepared for that. I was prepared for like the musical theatre side of things, not knowing that you need to learn, you need to have patience, you need to be able.
How would you then, okay, for instance, for somebody who may not necessarily, because the reason why we have these discussions obviously is, for the actors that are on, the creators that are on, we want to be able to help inspire. There could be something that I say or something that Josiah says that, could be like a eureka moment. Oh, I really needed to hear that. But I wanted to ask you, for any actors that are watching who may not necessarily know, whether it is musical theatre, whether it is film, whether it is, TV or whatever it is, how would you go about picking, the best element of acting to go into?
That's true. For me personally, I wanted to do musical theatre, but realistically, my mind was set on theatre. My heart was saying musical theatre. My brain was saying film and TV.
And that's because that came from the influences of Michael Jackson.
Yes, and all of that. But what I've realized in both sectors, because now it's a basic foundation that I have when it comes to acting. And I feel like musical theatre really brings out the best of your emotions on stage because it's live. And especially being so young and growing up in that musical theatre world, you are enabled to switch your character and be able to control the audience in a different way, because that's what I love about musical theatre. It's all about your emotions there and then. It doesn't matter how you were before the stage or after the stage. It's about your presence now. It's your moment to shine. So there's that aspect of musical theatre. It gives you control. It gives you the environment. It gives you how to read the audience and how to use the audience as a way to to propel you into another stage. And then with film and TV, for me, I feel like it takes a lot of patience to be in that industry as well, because the opportunities are there, but it depends on how you take that opportunity. It depends on how you prepare for that. Because self-tapes, especially during that COVID period, I realized that, okay, COVID's around. This is my time to actually be like on my role. I should focus on this. I should focus on doing that.
Because that's when it became more prevalent.
Exactly.
Because you couldn't go into actually, physical auditions.
Exactly.
For a long period of time.
Exactly. And I feel like with the TV side of things, it's a hard world, especially with the musical theatre. But I feel like TV and entertainment is a really tough world to be in as well, because there's the pressure of you being liked by the audience, that constant pressure of being like, if I'm being watched on TV, how come I'm here? And that person who I was auditioning against is so much better than me. How do I rise up to that expectation? How do I beat the level of expectation? There's always that constant mind game. And it's also just focusing on what you need to do and how you can overachieve as well. There's that constant thinking, that constant pressure of, okay, that was a good performance, but I could do so much better. I don't want to watch that because I know I could do so much better. So there's that constant push in that film and TV side of things too.
Not even to cut you here, but to actually to add to what you're saying. My actual, one thing that I've definitely noticed for myself since getting back into, acting and everything, I've seen how each element of acting, so the musical theatre, actual theatre, I've seen how they can all actually help, one another. So, for example, to give an example, I noticed, for instance, how very early on, I didn't like theatre.
No, it's true. Yeah,
even though like a lot of us actors, we were introduced into acting through theatre.
Yeah.
But the aim has always been, it's got to be film and TV.
Exactly.
But I've seen, for instance, how me being in theatre, number one, learning how to be vulnerable on stage, because you have like hundreds of people watching you, and it's like you have to almost not even be able to take them in. You can't see their faces.
You can't. No.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I've seen how I could translate that into film as well. When you're on a set and there's like 30 people behind the camera and stuff like that, you get what I'm saying? And still trying to connect with, the truth of that character. Because I always feel like that's the most important thing. And when people are watching film and TV, they want to connect with the character, the truth of the character.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like acting is such a sacred art form, because it really cuts, it cuts deeper than it's such a what's the word? There's a word that I'm looking for. I think the best word would probably just be truth. You get what I'm saying? But it exposes you as an individual, and that's what people connect with. Because when people are watching you, they want to connect with something that is true and relatable to them.
Exactly.
Do you get what I'm saying?
And there's also, and I've realized that a teacher told me very long ago, like before I started the theatre and everything else, I was in Lion King Cub School for a little bit.
Yeah.
And my teacher always told me that no matter how talented you are, you need to be able to emotionally be in tune with the character. You want to show your best on stage, but that doesn't mean you can have the best dance moves, you can sing the best. You need to connect.
That's the most important thing.
And that training, that specific preparation that you need to be in tune with that character is very, very key. And especially with the film side of things as well, you could be the best actor when it comes to filming. Like you could have the best emotions or the way you say your lines can be so amazing and it can be so outstanding. But if you don't realize, like if you don't actually feel the character, there's that kind of divide with that audience. There's that divide when it comes to acting and talent and having hard work going into those two spectrums. So it's quite
It's interesting you say that, because I've always said to people, when I am speaking about like things to do with like acting and stuff like that, I've always said that I feel like acting is 90% theory and actually 10% acting, because I feel like there's a lot of work that actually goes into creating and making this character. Like you need to literally lift the character off the page. Because it's until you've lifted the character off the page that you can then, you can connect with the human that the author actually, envisaged. Because I feel like that's always the most important thing. And so I've always been taught, something that I've learned, obviously through training, is the importance of, thorough research.
Definitely.
Thorough research. I remember there was a play that I was doing, and I was actually doing Malcolm and Marie. I don't know if you've seen it.
I haven't seen it, but
on Netflix. Yeah. And I was obviously playing Malcolm.
Okay.
And I remember my first 3 weeks of trying to understand that character. It was so difficult because I just couldn't connect with him yet. Do you get what I'm saying? I couldn't connect with his truth or even, his emotions or what makes him tick. But I remember it was like in the third or fourth week, and this was just through constant. So this is before I even, started working on, how it is that I want to picture the scene, or how it is that I want to do the scene. Just through constantly researching and constantly trying to understand, read, study other people who I felt were like similar to him. It wasn't until then where I actually, it's kind of funny, I must have just been watching, because I obviously saw that, he's a little bit like a mixture of Kanye West and Pep Guardiola.
Which is kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy as well.
So I saw that, like, cool, there's a little bit of a similarity with both of them. And I remember I was watching, it was a video of Kanye West, and it was the one where Kanye West goes, you ain't got the answer. You ain't got the answer. And it was when I saw that, and I was like, no, that's him.
That's him.
that's exactly who he is. And it was at that point where I connected with, you know, the truth of the character. He's a passionate man, but I realized his passion could very easily be misconstrued into him being crazy. Do you get what I'm saying? His passion doesn't actually, this is me, you know, reliving all the things doing like Malcolm. But his passion is just not understood by everyone. And because it's not understood by everyone, people will have different perspectives on that. Do you get what I'm saying? And that was the issue that he had with his partner, Marie, and so on and so forth. But I gave that little example just to show that acting is so much more intricate and delicate, and there's all these little processes that actually happen, or layers, so to speak, that need to happen before you actually get to, you know, making that character alive.
It's true.
At the end of the day.
It's true.
You know?
And I feel like that's powerful as well, because people tend to see someone on the screen and heavily criticize them, not knowing how much work and effort it took for them to even take the role, or even do a role that they haven't really prepared for, or haven't even done before. And I feel like that's where having a hard head, I call it a hard head, meaning that
a stubbornness.
That desire of just constantly learning and making sure that no matter what anyone says, you know that you're trying your best, knowing that whatever someone says about your performance cannot bring you down. And that's why it's really important to build layers when it comes to your confidence, making sure that you are confident no matter what you do. And especially as an actor, actors usually tend to be either calm, confident, or cocky. And I always see it in those three layers. And if you have one of those three, I tend to balance it out, because the cocky side of the character, or just me, comes from the acting. It gives you that foundation. It gives you that layer of, okay, I can do this character. Simple. Like, just give me a little bit of time and I'll be able to do it. The confidence, if the director says, you need to change that line, we're changing the whole script. The script that you've been learning for like a whole year, we're changing it. And it's just that confidence to say, okay, I'll be able to learn the script by tomorrow. And just ready, exactly, because you already know the character and you already feel like you are the character. So just that foundation of making sure that you are ready is really key, no matter what happens, no matter what the scenario is. And the calm state is really important, because before you go on stage and before you start to go into like the acting side of things, I feel like you need a little bit of tranquility, no matter what it is. Because exactly. And it could be either through music, or just like listening to something, or just like making sure you are in your own bubble, in your own space before you act, because you need to feel the character.
It's sensitive, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly.
I think there's something that you touched on that was quite important, actually. It's kind of how actors kind of work on or develop on how they're able to actually hold themselves with the pressure of how people view them, for instance. It's interesting because I was actually reading a small article on why a lot of Hollywood actors, for instance, tend to rely heavily on drugs, or they're facing a lot of drug addiction. And I realized that thing that you mentioned about, you know, constantly comparing yourself with other actors, all the pressures of, you know, you want this film to do well. Sometimes it can be very overwhelming, especially for people who haven't had, you know, a certain level of training. If there's something that I can always testify, being, you know, one of the leaders in the Wolf family, or the family that I come from, you know, the Nation family, etc. I think that we're trained in a way, so that when you look at me as an actor, I'm not just an actor. A lot of these people are going into the field of acting, or they're going into the creative space, for example, and it's just their talent that's there. But there isn't the other layers, you know, that makes them as a human, as somebody that can fully function, as someone that can still be useful. You know, some of the training that I'm going through at the moment is teaching me, number one, how, you know, for instance, to raise finances, for example. How, for instance, do you lead people? Do you understand what I'm saying? How are you able to communicate? How are you able to, you know, tolerate all sorts of different people? And, you know, being in a space like Hollywood, where you're going to be dealing with hundreds of different people, you know, those trainings will be so much more needed at a time like that.
Yes, true.
Do you get what I'm saying? So I've always spoken about, of course, I'm a house leader of one of the houses in the Wolf family, the House of Creatives, and I've seen, for example, how much that's helped me, know how to deal with many different people. Also have to develop on my skills of being able to raise finances. Sometimes I realized a lot of the actors who we hear about struggling in things like depression or having to rely on drugs is because when their talent, for example, is no longer needed, they don't have anything to fall back on.
It's true.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They don't have anything else that gives them weight or standing in a room. But if you have somebody who, for example, has experience in dealing with many different characters, who understands the importance of the necessity of knowing how to raise finances or knowing how to articulate yourself well enough, it means that, your talent alone, of course, as great as that is, but there will be people that may be better.
It's true. Yeah.
Exactly. But even if that is the case, what do you have that enables you to hold your own in such a room? And I feel like that's something that is so important. And it's so, I feel like when speaking to different creatives, I always try to emphasize or speak about some of the qualities we have in this family here. Do you get what I'm saying? We're leaders of many different fields. Do you get what I'm saying? Not just the creative space. Do you get what I'm saying? We can speak about business. We can speak about politics and stuff like that. But here we're speaking about the development of leaders that can go into a space and, they are more than just their talent.
It's true. Yeah. I feel like it gives you that voice.
Yeah.
And especially when it's needed, that voice comes through and it preps you up to a point where you're confident. Like the way I was talking about the confident, the calm and cocky, it gives you all those three layers, but in a way where you can lead. Those three emotions, especially in a place where if you go to any area, any scenario, you'll know what to do. It preps you up to do anything that you desire to do, per se.
Exactly.
Like when it comes to finances, if someone is like an accountant and they haven't been in like the accounting industry for some time, you get the training that's needed. And I feel like that's really powerful in what you talked about, because it's just that basic level of overstanding is already here. The foundation's already been built. And it's just that the people are already here as well. So it's just using those resources. And making sure that those resources are used to the fullest extent, making sure that you learn to your fullest extent. So I feel like that's really powerful.
If there's something, and I said it, 2 weeks ago, he's always said to me that you speak to see. And what that basically means is that, if there's an environment that you want to create or develop, you've got to keep speaking about it. You've got to keep being intentional about it. And I feel like, especially when, you have many creatives who, after a while, they lose their fire, they lose their motivation and stuff like that. That's when it calls for being a part of a family this, like the House of Creatives, like the Wolf family, like the Nation family.
It's true.
In which there's a conversation that is ongoing. Do you get what I'm saying? You want to keep something going. You want to keep people at a certain standard or fighting at a certain level. You got to keep a conversation going, and you got to be a part of that. Do you get what I'm saying? But I think we'll wrap it up today. We didn't want the discussion to go on too long, of course. Thank you guys all for tuning in. And, at the end of the day, what we want to do is, introduce you guys to this community of creatives and bringing creatives together and bringing out the inner leader that is in them. But thank you guys and see you later.